Let me tell you about a woman who claimed she could run hundreds of blood tests from a single drop of blood. Her name? Elizabeth Holmes. And for a while, people believed her. Elizabeth Holmes grew up in Washington, D.C. Father worked for government agencies before joining an Enron subsidiary as vice president. Mother worked in congressional committees. Comfortable family, well-connected. Elizabeth was smart, driven, and from a very early age, she was absolutely certain she was destined for something extraordinary. She enrolled at Stanford to study chemical engineering, but Stanford wasn't moving fast enough for Elizabeth. She had bigger plans. So at 19 years old, she dropped out and started a company called Theranos. The name was a combination of therapy and diagnosis. The idea: run hundreds of tests. From a single drop of blood, it will be faster, cheaper, more convenient, if and only if it worked. It would genuinely transform healthcare. Elizabeth had a gift, not for science, not for technology, but for storytelling, the kind that made people hand her money first, then ask questions later. She studied Steve Jobs obsessively, the black turtleneck, the reality distortion field, the messianic certainty. She adopted all of it. It became her identity, deepened her voice deliberately, spoke slowly, with conviction, with purpose. She told anyone who would listen that Theranos would make healthcare more accessible, that a single drop of blood would give ordinary people access to information previously only available to the wealthy. It was a compelling vision, a beautiful story. The only problem, she wasn't the genius she thought she was. The technology did not work. Not a little off, not needs improvement. It simply did not work. You'd think that part was kind of important. Apparently not to her. Now here's what Elizabeth did instead of fixing the technology. She raised money, lots of it. She assembled a board of directors that read like a who's who of American power. George Shultz, former Secretary of State. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State. James Mattis, former Marine General. William Perry, former Secretary of Defense. Notice who wasn't on that board. Not one oncologist, not one hematologist, not one laboratory scientist, not one person who could actually evaluate if the technology worked. That wasn't an oversight. That was the strategy. Scientists ask hard questions. Scientists believe in empirical evidence. Powerful non-scientists saw a black turtleneck and wrote checks. She raised over $700 million from investors. Walgreens partnered with her. Safeway partnered with her. Theranos machines were placed in these pharmacies. Real patients, real blood samples, real medical decisions were made based on results that were wildly inaccurate. It wasn't just retail pharmacies. The United States Department of Defense considered deploying Theranos devices on the battlefield in Afghanistan, testing soldiers' blood in combat conditions on technology that hadn't been independently verified, based largely on Elizabeth's word. She truly knew what to say. Inside the company, though, people knew. Engineers were raising concerns. Scientists were questioning the data. Employees were fired for asking too many questions. At one point, Theranos was secretly running patient samples on machines manufactured by other companies, competitors' machines, then presenting those results as if they came from their own revolutionary technology called the Edison machine. This flagship device could not reliably run any of the tests Theranos claimed it could perform from drops of blood. So how did Theranos get the results for these tests? From third-party labs, from manipulating results. At some point, Proving the technology worked became less important than maintaining the illusion that it worked. And protecting the lie became company policy. One of the people who discovered this firsthand was a young lab associate named Tyler Schultz, grandson of George Schultz. Tyler noticed the discrepancies, documented them, tried to raise the concerns internally, got nowhere. So he went to his grandfather, a founding board member, a former Secretary of State. Tyler Schultz didn't go to a regulator first. He didn't go to a journalist. He went to his grandfather, a man who had served 4 U.S. presidents, a man whose entire career was built on the word integrity. George Schultz looked at his grandson and chose Elizabeth Holmes. Not because the science checked out, not because he investigated the claims, but because he believed the turtleneck wannabe Steve Jobs. 23-year-old Tyler kept pushing anyway. Theranos sent lawyers after Tyler, and George Schultz stood with Elizabeth. Sunny Balwani, her business partner and secret boyfriend, helped enforce a culture of silence. Anyone who questioned the technology was managed out, intimidated, threatened with legal action, weaponized NDAs, or simply fired. And when whistleblowers and journalists threatened the story, Elizabeth turned to David Boies, one of the most aggressive litigators in America. Boies sent legal threats to former employees, had people surveilled. A journalist investigating the company was followed while reporting the story. Tyler Schultz was followed too. This wasn't a startup protecting trade secrets. This was a legal machine built to make sure nobody talked. But publicly, everything looked turtleneck perfect. Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world. Forbes named her the youngest self-made female billionaire, worth $4.5 billion on paper. The Wall Street Journal ran glowing profiles. She gave TED Talks. She met President Obama. Vice President Biden called her a brilliant young entrepreneur. Meanwhile, doctors were making treatment decisions based on her manipulated test results. Patients were being told they had diseases they didn't have. Patients with real conditions were being given false reassurance. It was John Carreyrou, a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, who started asking questions nobody else was asking. He spoke to former employees, scientists who had left, engineers who had been fired. Tyler Schultz, eventually among them. The story he published in October 2015 was the beginning of the end. Investigations began immediately. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services inspected the lab. What they found was so alarming. They revoked Theranos' lab certification, banned Elizabeth Holmes from operating a lab for 2 years. Then the SEC came, then the Department of Justice. Theranos shut down in 2018, $700 million raised, 0 working technology, hundreds of thousands of inaccurate tests, patients being put at risk. Elizabeth Holmes was indicted on federal fraud charges in 2018. She faced trial in 2021. During that time, she got pregnant twice. Some legal observers noted the timing. Prosecutors noted the timing. She showed up to trial as a mother, soft, vulnerable, nothing like the Steve Jobs figure she had cultivated for years. She claimed she was a victim of Sunny Balwani, that he controlled her, abused her. Balwani denied everything. He was tried separately, convicted separately. He was sentenced to nearly 13 years. Elizabeth, convicted on 4 counts of fraud, sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. She reported to prison in May 2023, currently serving her sentence at a federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas. She didn't steal billions the way Madoff did. She did something else. She played with something far more dangerous, people's health.